Hey everyone, welcome to a very different episode of Get Set Parent with Pallavi. So, all of you have been seeing me do my recorded videos with you. For those of you who are here for the first time, my name is Dr. Pallavi Rao Chaturvedi, and I am an educationist, I'm an entrepreneur, and I recently started this parenting channel where I discuss a variety of areas regarding learning at home for children, technology-based issues, emotional development, and a lot more. So I cater to parents who have children between the ages of 0 and 12. So if you are that parent, you're in the right place today. So my most recent episode, which just got aired, was that of decoding the new education policy. So if you're a parent in India today who is about to have a child, who has a child in kindergarten or school or college, there is no way that, you cannot understand the depth of what the new education policy could mean, because, the entire future of our children is at stake here. So I would urge all of you to start by looking at the episode, the episode that I shot. I have answered about 8 frequently asked questions about the new education policy. And thanks to all of your support, the video is doing really well. But what actually happened after that is that, I received a lot of questions, and that's how on social media we started the Ask Me Anything on the NEP. And today I'm going to be talking about those aspects of the policy that I didn't address in the first video, and I'm going to be kind of getting into it in a lot more detail. But before we go any further, I would urge all of you to please subscribe, like, and share. So subscription will help you stay on top of all the videos, new videos that I kind of publish every couple of weeks. So please do press the bell icon, and let's get started with today's video. So let's start with the first question that I received today. And the first question was from Parth Sable, who asks me, will the introduction of regional language or mother tongue be compulsory? So Parth, so this is the deal about languages. So yes, the policy says that it is preferable for kids to study in their mother tongue under the grades of 5 and preferably grade 8. However, what I'm observing in this entire policy is that it's very, very flexible. It caters to geographic requirements, caters to state specific requirements. So yes, there is a framework, but the rigidity has, they're trying to remove the rigidity which was there earlier. So as far as language is concerned, what is actually being suggested is a 3-language formula. So between the school, the student, and the parent, they can actually decide what languages will work best for children, right? In that particular school or in that particular class. So it is not going to be compulsory. It is not going to be very rigid. Mother tongue was preferred. They do say it is the preferred language because, it is believed that kids understand better and the conceptual understanding is much stronger in the mother tongue. However, it is not going to be rigid. What I have observed, though, in the policy is that there's going to be no distinction between the first language, second language, and the third language. So I don't think there's too much cause to worry here. So our children are not going to be sitting in mixed classrooms with 10 different languages. I don't see that happening. So I hope I've answered your question. I'll move to the second question now. What question is that? Yes. The second question is, will there be no CBSE, ICSE, or state boards? All right. So now that we have a national policy, we have these national frameworks. Now, I think that's a great question which has come about. So the simple answer is all the boards, CBSE, ICSE, state board, NIOS, which is the National Institute of Open Schooling, all of these will continue to be functional. right? So the boards are not going anywhere. However, all boards will be compliant with the NEP 2020. So let's understand what was the function of the board, right? So the board prescribed curriculum, and the board, took up assessments by which they released the grade 10 and the grade 12 scores, or the marks on the basis of which admissions happen. So in the new system, the curriculum, advisory for the curriculum is going to be set by the NCERT, not just for CBSE, but across the country, irrespective of the board, right? For all boards. NCERT is going to create the framework, and all boards will have the flexibility to create their own, the pedagogy or the details of it according to, according to how they would kind of stick to the framework. So this is as far as the curriculum is concerned. And the second thing, which is going to be a big change in the assessments, and I think this is very important for all of us, because, I think as young parents, we've all grown up kind of saying, oh, in ICSE, the English standard is very high, so the marks in English are going to be low, or CBSE, the science marks are going to, are usually more generous, or they score, it's very scoring, right? They have options of Sanskrit, and they have options of other languages, which kind of become scoring, and the state boards are supposed to be very easy. So now, to put rest to all of these differences in scoring, there's going to be the creation of Parak. So Parak is going to be the new entity for setting assessment standards. So once this framework for setting assessment standards by Parak comes into place, all boards will cater to that particular system of awarding marks, awarding, scores. So there is not going to be this kind of disparity that one views between the boards. And I think this is going to be a very, very different step. So that's that's the change that I see as far as curriculum and assessments are concerned. But the boards are not going anywhere. They're going to stay there. So I do want to mention on the first question, though, that we discussed on the languages, is that while all of these 3-language formula and all of that are going to be introduced, Sanskrit is going to be a required optional subject. In fact, a little bit of trivia for you, Sanskrit is known to be such a scientific and logical language, and such a foundation platform for so many languages, and it develops the language thinking skills. And I think that's being brought back, like a lot of the other Indian philosophies, rooted in our culture, in our value systems. I think that's going to be brought back in a big way. So that was that. So now I'll take the next question. Will the new education policy be applicable to CBSE students alone? No, it is not going to be applicable for CBSE alone. It is going to be applicable for every board in every state. It is going to be applicable for private schools, for government schools, for urban schools, rural schools. It is not all of this. All of these elements in the policy are applicable to every child in this country. So it is actually strengthening the new mantra which the policy has given us, which is right to learning, as opposed to the earlier right to education. So right to learning, under that, all of the aspects of this policy are actually going to be very, very instrumental in this entire thing. One of the things I do want to talk about here is that, which is very important for everybody to understand, because we all live in different states and different geographies of India, is that education is a concurrent subject, which actually means that while there could be a national framework or a policy, the implementation and local decision making is with each state. So what we are going to see in days to come, or months to come, or years to come, is that some states will be implementing the policy much faster. They're going to be sticking to a lot of the framework elements more, more rigidly, or they're going to be very literal in how they're going to adapt to it. Some states might take a very different approach. They're going to be slower. So there is going to be, a state-centric difference that we do see in this policy, because let's remember the policy also says that they're allowing room for a lot of, geographic involvement and, a local flavor and local, topics to seep into the curriculum, as long as it's within that framework. So this is what we're going to see. And so each state can decide the pace for when this policy is going to actually kick in. So there are some outer limits and timelines that the government, the Ministry of Education is going to prescribe. But I think now the wait and watch for each of us is to hear from our own state ministries and our own state governments on how are they planning to roll it out in the state. And parallelly, we also want to wait for the boards and see what is their takeaway from this entire policy and how are they going to go about it. All right. So let's move to the next question. The fourth question that I want to answer today. This is from Mayuresh Rai. Will the syllabus get reduced with the implementation of NEP 2020? So yes, I think the talk, ever since the policy has been released, I think the entire celebration has been that the new education policy is going to make room for a more learner-centered approach, more innovation, more critical thinking, make our students into thinking students who analyze at a deeper level and work on problem-solving capabilities and critical understanding and all of that. But at the same time, how is this going to happen? Because, our Indian education system, our school system does have very, very heavy curriculum and, it's very content-based. So the syllabus is going to get reduced. So what I understand is that the plan is that they're going to reduce the curriculum to its core essentials so as to make room for all of these other aspects of learning and understanding. In fact, they're also talking about inclusion of new subjects like artificial intelligence, coding for all children compulsorily, vocational labs and vocational education, and design thinking, organic living. So how is this really going to happen, right? Because the school day is only that much. If all of these new subjects and new method of thinking and learning have to be administered by the school managements, by the teachers, these are all very practical, hands-on kind of aspects of learning that we're talking about. How is this going to happen? It's only going to happen if that syllabus, or what we call the textbook content, the really thick textbooks, the absolute syllabus is going to be reduced. NCERT is apparently, it's all, the work is under process, and probably by 2021 or 22, we should start seeing the new syllabus, at least for the higher classes, as far as this new revised syllabus is concerned. And one of the other aspects of why the syllabus is going to be reduced is also that they are planning to move the entire assessment system. So I spoke to you about Parak, and I spoke to you about how there's going to be this standards setting body, right, which is going to take care of the assessments. So they're going to move to a complete, formative assessments as opposed to summative. Summative is when, you just assess the student at the end of, the school year, or you have 2 exams or 3 big term exams, as we used to call it. But now I think it's going to be broken into a lot more, lot more bits. And that's essentially, I guess, to increase the frequency at which students are tested, and the frequency and the depth in which small bits of the knowledge imparted can actually be tested. So this is, I think, one of the big changes which is going to be coming up as far as the syllabus is concerned. All right, so let me have a look at the next question. Okay, will children get confused due to so much flexibility in subjects? I think that's a great question. So if any of you have questions, I will request you to drop it in the comment box. You're watching the video on YouTube, so do drop in your comments and I'll try and answer those questions as well. All right. So will this flexibility confuse children? Yeah, too many options confuse us as well, right? So that is definitely a thought to start with. But let's look at the entire approach that the policy is trying to take. So our education system so far and the entire way in which it was structured was very, very rigid. If you compare it to the global standards of education, you look at the West, you look at the US or the UK or any of the European countries, and the way in which the credit systems are structured, or the options, the electives, how students can actually select their programs, they're not tied to a choice that they make when they're 14. I mean, even when you're 30, 35, people are still wondering what their calling in life is. So you don't expect a 10th standard student to be, married to commerce for the rest of his life and then not want to move to science at the end of it. So I think it's a great idea to allow children to kind of, play with subjects a little bit, experiment, mull over it, and then arrive at a larger decision, when they're more mature and they're able to decide. So I think the beauty of the new syllabus is that, or the new system is that in grade 9, students can actually select a variety of subjects. And, so it's not like I can select only physics, chemistry, maths / bio and a language thrown in. No, I can probably do physics and maths and history and maybe accounting, and I can do French and I can do music. So there's going to be a variety of options that students can select, and they have 4 years. So let me just repeat for you that there's going to be 4 fundamental stages in the education system now. There's going to be the foundation stage up to grade 3. There's going to be the preparatory stage up to grade 5. 6, 7, and 8 is going to be the middle school. And finally, the secondary level is 9, 10, 11, and 12. So when you allow a child to select their subjects in grade 9, so he or she actually has about 4 years to try and figure out, what they want to do post, grade 12. And in fact, even when they enter university level education, they're going to have a lot more flexibility in terms of their credits and their electives. And, even if you're doing engineering, you're going to be able to pick from subjects of humanities and pick a variety of subjects and kind of, make those choices. So all of this is really going towards looking at a student in his or her entirety and not compartmentalize, or the stigma of, oh, you're an arts student or you're a science student. I think that's very passé now, and I'm so glad that the entire policy, does the Kasturi Rangan committee has had so much vision, and they've really looked at what is going on in the West, because at the end of it, we do realize that there's so much, the speed of innovation is much faster there. So there must be something happening right in American schools, in schools from Finland, and schools from Singapore, Japan. So, there are elements from all of that. So I don't think a child will get confused. It is flexibility that, yes, and with more choice comes more responsibility. So I think parents, students, teachers will all take this in stride, and I think we will all adapt to the new system in future. So that was that question. Let me take the next question now. Okay, this is by Aniket Rane, and the question is, will the flexibility dilute the importance of subjects like PCM for entrance examination prep? Wow, that's a great question. And yeah, we are used to, students actually joining their coaching centers from grade 8, if not grade 6, right? Your IIT coaching centers and everything start much earlier. And I don't even know how, I mean, I'm sure in a lot of ways, it kind of clamps down the thinking abilities and the creative abilities of students. So how is this going to work, right? So when you come to grade 12, so there is a new entity called the NTA, which is the National Testing Agency, right? So the National Testing Agency is going to be conducting common aptitude tests as well as tests in specialized subjects, right? So whether it's your, apart from your common subjects, it will also be in humanities, languages, arts, vocations, all of that. One of the things to remember is they're going to treat every subject equally. So it is not going to be, this subject versus that. It is not going to be, for a student, a math student, the language is not going to be important, etc. It is going to be, all subjects are going to be treated equally. And the students will be able to select which subjects are they going to get tested in, and how are admissions going to work into college or into university. So the universities will get a kind of scorecard of all the subjects in which the students have taken their tests, and the universities can actually decide their own cutoffs and then decide how students will take admissions. So it is not going to be the best of 4 or a PCM plus in English. That's not going to be the way in which scoring or admission into universities is going to happen in future. It is going to be based on the scores or the results of the National Testing Agency. So it's going to be a combination of the interest of the student and the marks that they get. And it's going to promises to be a more well-rounded choice for the student and the selection for the university as well. All right. So yes, I see a comment by Mr. Saurabh Das. Hope I could study humanities again. I feel that as well. I think we have, in a way, not had the opportunity to be a part of this, but I guess it's never, it's better late than never, and at least the future generations get to be a part of a more flexible, open-minded system as far as studying in India goes. And so yes, we produce the world a lot of great engineers, but somewhere the system was always criticized as being very blinkered and very narrow and over focused. So I think now this will bring in a difference. So I can take the next question now. So there are a lot of comments coming in. In case you have any questions, thank you, Anandi Chitale, for following the channel. Thank you so much. Yes, indeed, it is a milestone in India's journey. After 34 years, we've got our own education policy. For those of you who've just joined in now, I'd urge you to also watch the first video that I did on the national education policy, which was, decoding 8 critical FAQs. So all the questions that I've actually posted in that video are not the questions that I'm addressing today. So you would want to go and have a look at that video as well. So yes, so let's move on to the next question. Will this flexibility be given at the entrance exam? I think we just did this question. Let's do the next one. Question number 8, yes. With the NEP, will schools have adequate infra to accommodate labs and facilities for so many subjects? So this question is by Hemal Majidya. Thank you, Hemal, for this question. Actually, that's a great question because, one has been listening to the introduction of coding labs and vocational labs, and not just one vocation. You're talking about carpentry and welding and pottery and textile and apparel and, a huge range of vocational subjects. There's also going to be design thinking, organic living. So obviously, these are not just theory-based subjects, and they have to be practiced. So where are all these labs going to come from? I mean, that is a question to be asked. And also, let's remember that these are not only for the highfalutin private schools, right? This policy is for every school, the government school, the rural school, the schools which have no internet, the far-flung schools. This policy wants to be a leveler. It actually promises to cater to the right to learning aspect to every student across the country. But this is also going to cost a lot of money. And where are these resources and labs going to come from? So one of the things that I definitely see is that with the GDP spend on education going up from 1.6 to 6%, there is going to be that extra thrust on creation of these labs. But obviously, with a population like our country and the kind of school students we have, and we also want to take up the GER or the gross enrollment ratios all the way to 50%, which is unprecedented. So yes, that is a very valid question. So one of the things I definitely think is that this extra spend of this 4.4% is going to kind of bridge that little bit of the viability gap as far as labs are concerned. But the policy also talks about consolidating school groups and creating these school complexes. My reading is, a few private schools, a few, public schools or government schools, they're going to be clustered to utilize the available resources. So again, like I said, the implementation of this is going to be very, very key. The ideas are great. The ideology, the philosophy, the approach, the intent is fantastic. But what remains to be seen is how the agility in which the state governments roll this out, the boards roll it out, and the school managements roll it out. So I think there's going to be a lot of discussion which will be needed. There will be state committees which will need to be formed. And the aim of these school clusters or complexes will be to, create a lot of resource efficiency and utilization of infrastructure. However, I guess there will be schools which will work as model labs once this entire system is rolled out. It is going to, we're going to have a few model labs which one would, schools can visit and then create these labs for themselves. So that's what I think about that question. All right, so let's move to the next question, which is, what about homeschoolers? All right. So what about homeschoolers? How will this policy affect them? All right, so just to address a little bit about homeschooling, in fact, I do plan to do a video about homeschooling 101 very shortly, and I will be doing that. But one of the things to observe is, unlike in the West, homeschooling has not been the preferred choice for parents or the community at large in India, right? So the done deal is to enroll our children into formal schools, and we as parents provide that kind of, complementary role to the school. And, there are also, and yes, of course, the hobby classes and the coachings and the tuition classes, but the focus is at the heart of it has always been the school, right? Unlike in the West, where there are families and parents who choose to homeschool. So what they mean by homeschooling is not what we are doing right now, which is the lockdown-based facilitating of homeschooling, because even now, the school is leading it. So when we talk about homeschooling, it is getting the syllabus, doing everything. The parents decide what needs to be done. The assignments are set by them. Of course, there are a lot more resources available. Let's also face it that the West has a lot of public utilities, whether it is museums, public labs, public parks, art centers. We don't have that kind of infrastructure in India. So that's why the school becomes very important. But we do have the NIOS, or the National Institute of Open Schooling. And this has been used a lot by students who had to, for a variety of reasons, drop out of school during their years. And, they could come back later and take the grade 10 or the grade 12 exam privately, right? So this is what we mean by homeschooling in India. The NIOS is the official body for allowing this kind of flexible system. So how is that going to change now? So earlier there was only the 10th and 12th exam, but now it is going to be grade 3, 5, 8, 10, and 12. And again, I think this goes back to the philosophy of having very formative based assessments. So it is not testing the child directly at 15 and 17, but it is about testing. So the concept of FLN, or the foundation literacy and numeracy, is going to be very critical, because unless the child clears the FLN, they're not going to be able to get into grade 3, getting into preparatory school from the foundation school, which is all the way up to grade 2. So I think these new levels of assessment are kind of going to change it further. And I expect that since this new system is open for NIOS and homeschooling as well, there will be resources, online resources. In fact, Diksha is going to be one of the major resources which will be available virtually for students everywhere to kind of access for the foundation literacy and numeracy. And I expect the same will be available, versions of that, for the higher classes as well. All right. Okay, so I can take the next question. All right. When will NEP 2020 come into effect, and how is it going to be rolled out? All right. So this is going to be very, very important. And I think the question on all of our minds, which is, this is great, but when is this going to happen? And I think the concern on people's minds is are also, oh, my child is in 12th now. Is it going to happen right now in March? Or my child is in 10th. How's it going to be for 12th? Or my child is in 8th standard. So everybody is very concerned. So I think we are all waiting for details from the boards, from the state governments, on the exact timelines on when and which batch is going to sit for the first year of the new system of exams, or the new system. But here's my understanding. NEP is in effect already on, right? The work has started already on NEP. NCRT has already started working on curriculum. Parak and the National Testing Agency are already being worked on. So all these frameworks are already being worked on at a furious pace, from what I'm reading about, by the Ministry of Education. But we need to see when is it going to trickle down to the state level. What is expected is that the session of 21-22, grade 9 will start implementing the new curriculum. Grade 9 might start with the new curriculum from next session, which is 21-22, and those students will actually see the new curriculum of the secondary school, which is 9, 10, and 11, and 12. So there are no real explicit guidelines. They're very indicative. But for example, we do know that there's some broad guidelines, right? So they do want to roll out this entire ICSE framework in the next 7 to 8 years. There is talk about, so there is a talk about 2025, but extending to a couple of years. So I think realistic expectations is going to be the key for all of us here. It is going to take time. It's a very, very intricate, deep policy. And in fact, every time I read the policy, there's a new understanding I get from it. Every point has subpoints, every subpoint has framework. So it is a very complex framework, and I think it should be that way. It cannot be simplistic for a nation like ours. It simply cannot. But there will be frameworks. I mean, there will be timelines to this, which we will all wait for. And I expect that anywhere by about 2030 to 2035 is where the entire policy in its entire, to do justice to this entire policy, it's at least going to take about 15 years for this nation and every state, every union territory, and every city, every district, every block to kind of catch up to what this policy is going to mean. So that's what I see there. I also did see a question about how will teachers be empowered? I think we had that question. Maybe we can put that up as well. So because, somebody actually asked me this question on how will teachers be empowered? And I think that's a fantastic question, because the curriculum is new, the assessments are new, the frameworks are new. How are teachers going to be empowered? Because the teachers have studied in the old system. The teachers have grown up in the old system. They've been teaching for the last 36 years in the old system. So how do we expect our school managements and teachers to kind of come into this new system? So one of the things that I kind of absorbed from this policy is that the teachers are going to be kept equally centrally to the students. So while we talk about a learner-based policy, this is also going to keep the teacher at the center. And I think that's what every parent, every student will also want, because the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating, and we need our teachers to be confident in the new system. So there is something called the CPD, which is the continuous professional development, which is going to be mandated for every teacher, which is going to happen for 50 hours every year. So every teacher at every stage of the education system will have to undergo the CPD, or the continuous professional development program. The details in the framework are also going to come in. What's also very exciting is that the B.Ed program, whenever it begins in the new system, is going to be a 4-year integrated program. So it is going to be far more rigorous. It is going to have elements of the policy, and teachers who want to teach will actually choose B.Ed as a 4-year bachelor's program. They will have they will go through the entire aspects of the framework, what ICSE means, what the FLN means, what the CPD means, what Parak means. They will actually be rigorously trained in this entire system of the new education policy of 2020. By 2021, which is next year, there's going to be something called the NCFTE 2021, which is the National Curriculum Framework for Teacher Education. So I expect the B.Ed will be launched under that. This is going to be very, very critical. There's going to be a common guiding set called the National Professional Standards for Teachers by 2022. They're going to be teacher eligibility tests, which already exist, but they're going to be strengthened. Teachers will also have a lot of options in choosing their pedagogy, the kind of teaching styles. They're going to be, in their 4-year B.Ed program, they're going to be exposed to a variety of teaching styles happening across the world. And, I think what the lockdown has taught even teachers is that the chalk and talk method is kind of dated now. And the primary focus of the teacher is not to provide information as much as it is to facilitate learning at a much deeper level. So that is what we see. And I think, two very interesting things is that good teachers will be provided scholarships and incentives to teach in rural schools. And there's going to be a merit-based tenure, promotion, and salary structure as well. So for all the teachers everywhere, I think this is going to be great news. I think it's going to bring in pride into the profession of teaching. All our children do well today because of the kind of teachers and the kind of effort they put in. What they probably didn't have is enough hand-holding and training. And I'm so glad that the NEP actually looks at this entire aspect, as it were. So that's what's going to happen on teachers. So I think we will. So we've spent about 40 minutes, and I've answered about 11 or 12 questions. And I hope this has given you a deeper insight into what the education policy will spell out for the future of the generations of this country. I haven't touched upon higher education, which is post 12th, because on my channel I have been catering to parents of school-going children, but I will do one on higher education very soon. So how to choose universities and how to decide what programs to get into in the new system is also something I'll touch upon. But before I end, I would urge all of you all to please subscribe to my channel. So show me some love and subscribe so I can keep putting out new videos for you, and keep asking me your questions. If you have any topics that you would like me to address in my videos in future, you can do that. Otherwise, I anyway have a list of videos that I curate based on the DMs that I get, the messages in my inbox that I get. So I'll urge you all to continue to drop me messages. So thank you so much for being a lovely audience. And so I'll end the live session here. Thanks, and see you soon on Get Set Parent with Pallavi. Take care. Stay safe, everyone. Bye-bye.